"Read this letter to the sky," the little boy whispered, holding out a wrinkled envelope to the tired doctor. Dr. Ethan Cole frowned until he saw his own name written on it in a trembling hand he hadn't seen in years. What he discovered inside would break him open and lead him back to the family he never knew he had. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly above the empty corridor. Rain tapped against the wide hospital windows like an anxious heartbeat. Dr. Ethan Cole sat on a steel bench outside the pediatric ICU, his gloved hands trembling around a small folded piece of paper. He'd just come out of a 12-hour surgery, but the exhaustion in his eyes wasn't from the hours. It was from something heavier, something he couldn't name yet. At the far end of the hall, a little boy stood silently. His backpack looked too big for his small frame, the yellow straps soaked from the rain he must have walked through. His eyes were fixed on the doctor, not with fear, but with a quiet, desperate kind of hope. Ethan looked up, forcing a tired smile. "Hey, buddy, are you lost?" His voice came out rough, breaking the stillness of the corridor. The boy shook his head. "No, I'm waiting for you." The answer stopped Ethan cold. He blinked, trying to understand. "Waiting for me? What's your name?" The boy hesitated, clutching a damp envelope against his chest. "Noah," he whispered. "My mom said I had to find you and give you this." He took a few cautious steps forward, extending the letter with both hands. Ethan noticed the paper was wrinkled, edges torn, the ink slightly blurred from rain, or maybe tears. Ethan took it slowly, his fingers brushing against the boy's small hand. The envelope had no address. Just one sentence written in trembling handwriting. "Can you read this letter to the sky?" Something inside him cracked open. He wanted to ask questions. Who sent it? Why the boy was alone? But Noah's eyes held a silence that told him this wasn't the time. Claire, the night nurse, appeared around the corner, whispering urgently, "Doctor, the paramedics just called. There's been an accident on Route 3. We need you in the ER now." Ethan stood frozen, the letter still in his hand. His duty pulled him one way, but something about the boy, about that message, anchored him to the floor. Noah tugged lightly on his sleeve. "Please, read it tonight. Mommy said it can't wait." The hallway lights flickered. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Ethan looked down at the envelope again, his name suddenly catching his eye, faintly written in the corner beneath the raindrops. To Dr. Ethan Cole. His breath caught in his throat. He turned toward Noah, but the boy had already stepped back, his small face half lit by the corridor's cold light. "Where's your mom, Noah?" Ethan asked softly. The boy's eyes shimmered. "She's already in the sky." The thunder outside cracked like a final word. Ethan's hand shook around the letter, and for a moment the entire hospital seemed to fall silent. The rain hadn't stopped. It drew thin silver lines down the tall hospital windows as the night deepened into something heavier, more private. Dr. Ethan Cole stood alone in the staff locker room, staring at the letter resting on the metal counter. The envelope looked fragile now, like it might dissolve if he touched it again. He ran a hand through his hair and exhaled. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped steadily, echoing through the sterile air. He had just finished treating the victims from the highway crash, 3 injured, 1 gone before arrival, and yet his mind was nowhere near the trauma bay. It was still with the boy, with Noah. "Doctor?" Claire's voice broke the silence as she pushed open the door slightly. "That kid's still in the waiting area. He refuses to leave until you read it." Ethan turned slowly. "You mean he's still here?" She nodded, concern flickering across her tired face. "Social services are on their way, but it'll take a while. He said his mom told him you'd understand the letter." He stared down at the envelope again, feeling a strange chill crawl up his spine. "She told him I'd understand it?" Claire's silence was answer enough. Minutes later, Ethan walked back down the long, dim corridor toward the waiting area. Noah was curled up on a plastic chair, his backpack resting against his legs. The boy's small fingers fidgeted with the straps, and his eyes lifted the moment Ethan approached. "Did you read it yet?" Noah asked, his voice soft but steady. "Not yet," Ethan said, kneeling down to his level. "But I will. I promise. Can you tell me your mum's name?" Noah's eyes filled with something distant, a memory just out of reach. "Her name was Lily," he whispered. "She said you helped her once. A long time ago." Ethan's heart stumbled. The name hit him like a faint echo of something buried deep in his past. Lily, a young woman he'd treated years ago, barely out of her 20s, who had come in after a car crash. He'd never known what happened to her after she left. He sat beside Noah, his hands shaking as he unfolded the letter. The handwriting was delicate, almost fading in places, as if it had been written with trembling hands. He began to read silently at first, but the words blurred. So he read aloud, his voice cracking at every line. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't finish what I started. My son, Noah, doesn't know the truth. I didn't tell him who his father is because I wanted him to find kindness first, before knowing pain. If fate leads him to you, please tell him the truth I couldn't say." Ethan's vision swam. He froze halfway through the next line, the words slicing through him like cold glass. "Because, Ethan, you're his father." The letter slipped from his hands and fluttered to the floor. Noah looked up at him, confused by the silence. "What does it say?" he asked. Ethan couldn't speak. The room spun around him, the rain, the lights, the soft hum of the machines, all fading into a single, suffocating truth. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky, and the reflection of that light caught the edge of the letter, just enough for Ethan to see the last sentence, written faintly at the bottom. "Can you read this letter to the sky and tell him his mother forgives him?" He pressed a trembling hand to his face, his breath shallow. And in the quiet of the hospital, the sound of Noah's small voice cut through the air like a whisper from somewhere beyond. "Doctor, why are you crying?" The storm finally began to fade, leaving only a soft drizzle against the glass walls of the hospital. Dawn was still hours away. In the pediatric wing, the lights had dimmed to a sleepy amber, the kind that made the world look distant, almost unreal. Dr. Ethan Cole sat beside Noah's bed, his elbows on his knees, the letter folded again in his pocket like a wound he couldn't close. The boy had fallen asleep, small fingers wrapped around the corner of his blanket. Every few seconds his lips moved, murmuring something only dreams could understand. Ethan couldn't stop staring. There was something achingly familiar about the boy's face, the curve of his nose, the shape of his eyes. He'd seen it before, every time he looked in the mirror. Claire entered quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You should get some rest," she whispered. "I called social services. They'll be here at sunrise." He nodded without meeting her eyes. "Thanks, Claire." She studied him for a moment, then lowered her voice. "You read it, didn't you?" His shoulders tensed. "Yeah. And?" Ethan's breath shook. "And it's not something I can unread." Claire placed the coffee on the table beside him. "He needs someone tonight. Whatever that letter said, you can deal with it later. Right now he's just a scared kid." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because every part of him wanted to reach out, to tell Noah who he was. But the doctor inside him kept whispering that it wasn't the right time, that he had to stay professional, detached. But how could he? He looked down at the boy again. Noah stirred, opening his eyes halfway. "Dr. Ethan?" he murmured. "Yes, buddy? Can you stay here? Just until the lights come back?" Ethan hesitated only a second before nodding. "Yeah, I'll stay." Noah smiled faintly and drifted back to sleep. The silence stretched. Ethan's eyes drifted to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving streaks like tear tracks down the glass. He thought of Lily, her voice, her laughter, the way she used to sketch flowers on napkins during her hospital stay. He'd promised to call her once she recovered, but he never did. Work had swallowed him whole. He told himself she'd moved on, but she hadn't. She'd raised their son alone. He pressed his palm to his mouth, guilt clawing up his chest like fire. "God, Lily," he whispered, barely breathing the words. "What did I do to you?" At that exact moment, Noah turned in his sleep and mumbled, "Mom says don't be sad. She's watching." Ethan froze. His heartbeat faltered. The boy's voice had shifted, soft, certain, almost like he was repeating words spoken just then, not long ago. He stood slowly, the air suddenly too heavy to breathe. Something about that room, about the stillness, felt alive, listening. From the corridor, a soft knock echoed. Claire's silhouette appeared in the doorway, her voice low. "Ethan, there's something you should see. A woman from the ER. She says she knew Lily." Ethan turned, his pulse pounding. "Now?" She nodded. "She came asking for the boy." The sound of thunder rumbled faintly again in the distance, even though the rain had stopped. Ethan glanced back at Noah one last time before stepping into the hall, unaware that the next few minutes would change everything again. The hallway outside the pediatric wing smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. Ethan's shoes echoed softly against the floor as he followed Claire toward the ER reception. The hospital was quieter now. Even the usual beeps and murmurs seemed to hold their breath. A woman stood near the entrance, wrapped in a soaked denim jacket. Her hair clung to her face, and her eyes, sharp but tired, lifted the moment she saw him. She couldn't have been much older than Lily had been. "Dr. Cole?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes," Ethan replied cautiously. "You said you knew Lily?" She nodded, clutching a small pendant in her hand. "I'm her sister. My name's Rachel." The world seemed to tilt. Ethan blinked, trying to find his words. "Rachel, I didn't know she had family nearby." "She didn't," Rachel said softly. "I moved here last year. When Lily got sick again, she didn't want to tell anyone. She thought she could handle it alone. When she passed, she left me her things. I found the letter last month, but I didn't know where to send it. Then Noah ran away before I could stop him. He said his mom told him to find you." Ethan leaned against the counter, his knees weak. "You mean Lily knew she was dying?" Rachel's eyes glistened. "For months, she refused treatment, said she had to write that letter first, said it would fix what time broke." He stared at her, guilt pressing down on him like a weight. "She didn't tell me," he whispered. "She said you had your own life," Rachel replied, her tone not accusing but deeply sad. "That maybe it was better that way. But after she died, Noah wouldn't stop talking about finding you. He said she visited him in a dream, that she told him to find the man who could read her letter to the sky." Ethan's throat closed. The phrase from the envelope echoed like a ghost between them. "Read her letter to the sky." Rachel took a slow breath. "Noah's been drawing stars ever since. On the walls, the floor, even on the windows. He says that's where she lives now." Ethan turned away, pressing his hands to his face. "I don't know how to tell him. He deserves the truth, but how do I tell a child that I failed his mother before he was even born?" Rachel's voice softened. "You tell him the truth anyway, because that's what Lily wanted." The room fell silent except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Rachel stepped closer, pulling something from her pocket, a small weathered locket. "She wanted you to have this," she said, placing it in his palm. Ethan opened it. Inside was a faded photo of Lily, smiling under a summer sky, holding a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. On the back, in her handwriting, were 3 words that made his vision blur again: "For our son." His knees nearly buckled. Rachel steadied him with a trembling hand. "She forgave you, Ethan. She really did. You were the one she never stopped talking about." The doctor's composure shattered. For the first time in years, he let the tears fall. Not quietly, but fully, raw, unguarded, real. Through the haze of emotion, he heard Rachel's voice again, softer this time, almost a whisper. "There's one more thing. Noah wasn't supposed to come here alone. He said your name out loud the night before she died, like she whispered it to him. She said you'd know how to send her message. To the sky." Ethan looked up slowly, his face pale. "What message?" Rachel hesitated. "She said you'd understand once you looked past the words." And before he could ask again, an urgent voice called from down the corridor. Claire's voice, breathless and afraid. "Ethan, it's Noah. He's not breathing." The world narrowed to the sound of rushing footsteps and alarms. Ethan sprinted down the corridor, the white floor blurring beneath him, his mind a storm louder than the monitors ahead. Claire was standing outside the pediatric room, her face pale. He just collapsed. His oxygen dropped out of nowhere. Ethan pushed through the door, his hands already steadying before his mind could catch up. Noah lay motionless on the bed, a tangle of IV lines and thin wires tracing his small chest. His skin had gone pale, his lips faintly blue. "Get me a crash cart," Ethan barked. His voice was sharp now, all doctor, no father, the instinct of years snapping back into place. But beneath it, something broke with every beat. Claire moved fast, calling out vitals, while Ethan pressed 2 fingers to the boy's neck. No pulse. He started compressions, counting under his breath, each number a plea. 1, 2, 3. Rachel appeared at the doorway, frozen, the locket still clutched in her fist. The room filled with the flat, rhythmic sound of CPR. Time folded into something endless. "Charge to 20 joules, Ethan said hoarsely. "Clear." The jolt lifted the boy's small body, then silence again. "Still no rhythm," Claire whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw, the sweat running down his temple. Again. "Clear." Another shock, another silence. The monitor flickered, then let out a faint, stubborn blip. Once. Then again, a pulse. Weak, but real. Claire exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to her mouth. "He's back." Ethan leaned over Noah, his hands trembling as he brushed a damp lock of hair from the boy's forehead. "Come on, kid," he murmured. "Stay with me." Noah's eyelids fluttered. For a moment his gaze seemed unfocused. Then something shifted. He looked directly at Ethan, his voice faint, almost like wind. "Mom says it's not time yet." Ethan froze. "What did you say?" Noah blinked slowly, a tiny smile ghosting over his lips. "She said she can wait." And then he drifted back into unconsciousness, his vitals steadying. The room went quiet, except for the beeping monitor. The relief was unbearable and fragile all at once. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard, staring at the boy like he'd just watched a miracle unfold. Rachel wiped her eyes. What did he mean? Ethan didn't answer. His mind was spinning through memories, regrets, prayers he hadn't said in years. He felt it deep in his bones. Lily was there, somewhere, watching. He looked down at the letter still resting on the counter. The edges had curled, and through the thin paper he could see faint marks, lines, maybe drawings, beneath the writing. Something he hadn't noticed before. He picked it up and held it to the light, and there, behind Lily's handwriting, was a faint outline of stars, a hand-drawn constellation looping across the page. Ethan's breath caught. "She drew this..." Rachel stepped closer. "What is it?" He turned the page sideways, tracing the lines with his finger. The pattern formed a shape, a circle with a break at the top like an open heart. "It's not just a letter," he said softly. "It's a map." Rachel frowned. "A map to what?" Ethan lifted his eyes toward the window where the first hints of dawn were breaking over the city. "To where she wanted her ashes to go," he whispered. "She wanted me to read it to the sky." Literally. The room filled with light as the rain clouds began to thin. For the first time that night, the world seemed to breathe again. But Ethan's chest remained tight, the guilt and the love and the truth twisting together like storm and sunlight. Because he finally understood, Lily had written that letter not to break him, but to lead him home. And yet, the hardest part was still ahead. Outside, the sun rose behind the hospital towers, golden and fragile, and the reflection of that light crossed Noah's face like a silent blessing. The city was waking up when Ethan stepped outside the hospital. The air smelled of wet asphalt and new beginnings. He stood beneath the overhang, still wearing his white coat, watching the pale sunrise stretch across Boston's skyline. The world looked strangely fragile, like glass after a storm. Behind him, Noah sat in a wheelchair, holding his backpack tight against his chest. Claire pushed him gently through the automatic doors. "Are you sure about this, Ethan?" she asked. "He just came out of a crisis." Ethan turned, eyes calm but resolute. "He's stable now. The doctors cleared him for discharge in a few hours, and this is something we both need to do." Rachel stood beside them, her arms crossed, unsure whether to argue or let fate move as it wanted. "You think Lily's letter was some kind of map?" Ethan looked down at the folded paper in his hand. The faint constellation lines glowed softly in the early light. Not just a map, a direction. She wanted to go somewhere open, where the sky could hear her. He crouched beside Noah. "Buddy, do you remember where your mom used to take you when she wanted to watch the stars?" Noah thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. There was a hill by the lake, We'd bring hot chocolate and she'd say the stars were candles for people in heaven. Ethan swallowed hard. Do you think you could show me where that hill is? The boy nodded, eyes bright. I remember every turn. A few hours later, Ethan's car rolled through the narrow roads outside the city. Trees flanked both sides of the highway, still dripping from the rain. The sky above was clear now, endless and blue, like a promise waiting to be kept. Inside the car, Noah hummed quietly in the back seat. The hum wasn't random. It was a tune Ethan hadn't heard in years. A lullaby. Lily's lullaby. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, his eyes burning. "So you know that song?" "Mom sang it when she missed someone," Noah said softly. Rachel, sitting beside him, turned her face toward the window. "She sang it every night near the end," she whispered. They reached the lake by late afternoon. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and water. The hill rose gently from the edge, crowned by a lonely oak tree that leaned toward the open sky. Ethan parked the car and helped Noah out, carrying him part of the way when his legs grew tired. The boy pointed ahead, smiling. "That's where she sat, right there." They stopped beneath the oak tree. The view stretched endlessly, the lake shimmering like a sheet of silver, the horizon wrapped in clouds of gold. Ethan unfolded the letter again. The ink had faded more since that night, but the stars Lily had drawn were still visible. He tilted the page toward the sky, matching them to the constellations above. Noah watched, wide-eyed. "You're reading it to the sky," he whispered. Ethan's voice trembled as he began to read. "To whoever looks up tonight, forgive me for leaving too soon, but remember, love doesn't vanish, it changes form. Tell him I was never angry. Tell him he gave me the best thing I ever had." Ethan paused, his eyes wet. "She means you," he said softly. Noah smiled shyly. "And you?" He couldn't answer. Not yet. The breeze lifted gently, brushing through the branches above. And in that moment, as the wind moved around them, Ethan swore he could smell Lily's perfume. Faint, like jasmine and rain. Rachel turned her face toward the sky, whispering, "She's here." For a heartbeat, the clouds broke open and sunlight spilled across the hill in a perfect circle, surrounding them in light. Noah reached up, stretching his fingers toward it. "Mom," he said simply. "We read it." Ethan knelt beside him, overwhelmed by the quiet, sacred stillness of that moment. But deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end. Lily's message wasn't finished yet. There was one last truth she'd hidden in those stars, one Ethan hadn't seen. And as the wind shifted again, the corner of the letter caught on a breeze, lifting from his hand and spiraling upward, rising higher, until it disappeared into the sky. Night had settled over the lake like a velvet curtain. The stars hung low and clear, each one pulsing with a quiet rhythm, as if the universe itself were breathing. Ethan sat on the hood of his car, the old letter spread across his lap. The faint pencil lines of Lily's constellation shimmered beneath the starlight, no longer random, now forming a shape he could finally recognize. A heart, broken in half, but with a bridge of stars connecting the two sides. Rachel was asleep inside the car, her head resting against the window. Noah sat cross-legged beside Ethan, drawing in the dirt with a small stick. "Are you trying to fix it?" the boy asked, glancing at the letter. Ethan smiled weakly. "Maybe. Or maybe it's trying to fix me." Noah squinted up at the sky. "Mom said stars talk to each other even when they're really far apart. That's how love works." The simplicity of it hit Ethan harder than any sermon could. He swallowed, his voice unsteady. "Your mom was the best person I ever knew." "She said you were good too," Noah murmured. "She said you just forgot how to listen to your heart." The words made Ethan's chest tighten. He looked down at the constellation again, tracing the bridge of stars. For the first time, he noticed tiny letters written along the connecting line, so faint they could have been mistaken for scratches. Lily's handwriting. "Meet me where the sky begins." Ethan whispered the words aloud. Noah looked up. "What does that mean?" He stared toward the horizon, where the black water met the sky in an unbroken line. "It means there's somewhere she wants us to go." The boy leaned his head against Ethan's arm, a small act of trust that felt like forgiveness. "Can we go tomorrow?" Ethan nodded, brushing a hand through Noah's hair. "Yeah, buddy, we'll go tomorrow." But as he folded the letter again, something slipped from between its pages. A hospital photograph. Lily, thinner, pale, lying in a bed, smiling weakly at the camera. On the back, a note in the same handwriting. "He'll need your voice more than your name." Ethan's throat tightened. He understood now. Lily hadn't wanted to punish him. She'd wanted Noah to find not just his father, but the man she fell in love with. The one who listened, who healed, who cared. He looked up at the stars, whispering, "I'm sorry, Lily. I'm here now." The air around him stirred gently, carrying the faint scent of jasmine again. The leaves rustled as if someone had walked past. For a moment, Ethan could almost feel a hand on his shoulder. Light, warm, familiar. Noah blinked at the movement. "She's here, isn't she?" Ethan didn't answer. He just nodded, his eyes glistening. They sat in silence for a long time, the only sound the soft whisper of the lake against the shore. And then, as if in reply, one star above them flickered brighter, then dimmed, leaving behind a soft trail of light. Noah pointed. "That's her candle," he said. Ethan's voice broke. "Yeah," he whispered. "That's her." The letter rested in his hand like a heartbeat. He knew now what he had to do. Follow the map, complete what Lily began, and tell Noah everything, before the universe took that chance away again. Far in the distance, the horizon shimmered faintly, and for a moment the boundary between earth and sky seemed to vanish, the place where the sky begins. They left before sunrise. The world was still half asleep, the sky painted in soft blues and faint golds. Ethan drove quietly, the sound of the tires humming against the asphalt. Noah sat in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket, clutching the folded letter like a secret only he could protect. Rachel dozed beside him, her hand resting on the small locket that once belonged to Lily. Every now and then the road curved toward the open horizon, and Ethan would glance at the constellation map, comparing it to the shifting sky above. "Where are we going?" Noah asked softly. Ethan smiled through the rearview mirror. "To where your mum said the sky begins." "Is it far?" "Not too far, just far enough to remember." Hours passed. The city disappeared behind them, replaced by wide fields, patches of forest, and long stretches of empty road shimmering under the morning sun. The air smelled of dew and pine. Ethan rolled down the window, letting the cool wind rush in. For the first time in years, he felt like he could breathe. When they reached the countryside, Noah pointed out the window. "Look, that's the mountain Mum drew." Ethan slowed the car. In the distance, a small hill rose beside a lake, its peak touched by a thin ribbon of mist. The shape matched perfectly with the faint outline on Lily's drawing, the end of the map. They climbed the last stretch on foot, Noah holding Ethan's hand. The wind picked up as they reached the top, carrying the low murmur of the water below. The sky stretched endlessly around them. No buildings, no boundaries, only light and air. Ethan opened the letter once more. The ink was nearly gone, but the meaning had never been clearer. "When you find this place, don't look for me in the past. Look for me in everything that moves toward the light." He read it aloud, his voice breaking halfway through. Noah looked up at him, eyes wide. "Does that mean she's here?" Ethan nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's here, buddy." "Everywhere?" The boy reached into his backpack and pulled out a small glass jar filled with white petals. "Mom said these are her stars," he said. "She wanted us to let them go when the wind feels right." Ethan took a deep breath, his hand trembling as he unscrewed the lid. The petals caught the morning breeze instantly, rising and swirling through the air like tiny constellations being set free. For a moment, they seemed to glow, the sunlight turning them into drifting sparks of gold. Noah laughed, his voice echoing over the valley. "Look, Dad, she's flying." Ethan froze. The word Dad hung in the air, small, pure, unplanned. His eyes filled with tears, his throat tightening. He knelt beside the boy, pulling him close. "Yeah," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She's flying." They stayed like that, the petals circling them, rising higher and higher, until they disappeared into the morning light. Rachel watched from a few steps back, her eyes shimmering. She had never seen such stillness, such peace, radiate from someone who had lived so long with guilt. As the last petal vanished into the sky, Ethan pressed his forehead against Noah's and murmured, "You were never lost, kid. You were just finding your way home." The wind softened, wrapping around them like an embrace, and somewhere in that quiet, a single phrase seemed to whisper through the air, Lily's voice, light as breath. "You finally read it to the sky." Ethan closed his eyes. For the first time in years, his heart didn't ache. It just beat, steady and whole. But as he stood, something caught his attention. Carved into the trunk of the oak tree nearby were initials he hadn't noticed before. L+E. The same tree from years ago. The one where he'd once promised her forever. And he realized Lily had brought him exactly where forever began. The road back to Boston felt different. The same signs, the same curves. But this time, the weight on Ethan's chest had changed. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was something softer, almost fragile. Acceptance. Noah sat in the back seat, humming Lily's lullaby again, his voice a faint echo of hers. Every few minutes he'd look out the window and whisper, "She's still watching." Ethan would nod because he believed it now. By the time they reached the hospital, evening had fallen. The sky was a deep violet, streaked with gold where the sun had just disappeared. The same color, Ethan thought, as the petals when they'd flown into the light. Claire met them at the entrance. "You made it back," she said, her eyes soft with relief. "And you look different." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe I finally learned how to listen." She glanced at Noah, who was half asleep in his wheelchair, clutching the now empty jar. "How's he holding up?" "Stronger than any of us," Ethan said quietly. "He taught me what forgiveness looks like." They walked through the long corridor together, the same one where he'd first seen the boy standing alone, soaked from the rain. But tonight, it didn't feel cold. The lights seemed warmer, the silence less heavy. Rachel followed behind, carrying a small box, Lily's things. "There's one last envelope," she said softly. "I found it taped under the locket. It's for you." Ethan stopped. "For me?" Rachel handed it to him, the paper delicate and yellowed from time. The handwriting was unmistakable. Lily's. He sat down on the same bench where everything had started. Noah watched, his eyes curious but calm. Ethan unfolded the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single page, simple, short, written with the kind of clarity that only comes from someone who has already made peace with the end. "If you're reading this, then you found our son. Don't waste another day hiding from the man you were. You don't owe me an apology. Just love him the way I couldn't stay long enough to tell him I was never gone. I just became the sky." The words blurred through his tears. He closed his eyes and pressed the letter against his chest. Noah reached for his hand without saying a word. Ethan looked at him, the boy's eyes full of quiet understanding far beyond his years. "She wanted me to tell you something," he whispered. "That she loves you. Every sunrise, every star, that's her saying it again." Noah smiled. "And she loves you too, Dad." The word Dad hit him again, gentle this time, like light breaking through a window. He exhaled, and something deep inside him unclenched for good. Claire stood a few steps away, wiping her eyes. "You know, Ethan," she said softly, "some people spend their whole lives waiting for a second chance. You just got yours." He nodded. "And I'm not wasting it." Outside, through the tall windows, the first star appeared, a small white spark against the violet sky. Noah pointed at it. "That's her candle again." Ethan smiled. "Yeah, she's home." Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "So are you." The hospital hummed quietly around them, the machines, the footsteps, the low voices, all the sounds of life going on. But in Ethan's heart, everything was still. He finally looked peaceful. And though he couldn't prove it, he knew Lily was there, somewhere between the air and the light, watching the man she'd always believed he could become. A week later, the hospital rooftop was quiet under a clear evening sky. The city glowed below, thousands of windows flickering like scattered constellations. Ethan stood near the edge, his white coat fluttering lightly in the wind. Beside him, Noah held a small paper lantern, its candle still unlit. "Mom would like this," Noah said, his voice soft but sure. "She would," Ethan replied, crouching beside him. "She used to say the sky listens better at night." Rachel and Claire stood a few steps behind, watching in silence. They didn't need to speak. Some moments deserved to breathe on their own. Ethan took out a lighter and carefully touched the flame to the lantern's base. The small candle flickered to life, bathing Noah's face in gold. The boy looked up, his eyes reflecting the light like tiny mirrors of the stars above. "Ready?" Ethan asked. Noah nodded. Together they lifted the lantern. The wind caught it gently, carrying it upward. They watched it rise, slow, graceful, until it became a glowing dot among the constellations. For a moment, Ethan thought of Lily again, her laugh, her eyes, the way she used to trace constellations on napkins. The ache that once tore through him was gone now, replaced by something lighter, almost like gratitude. He spoke quietly, half to himself, half to the sky. "We read your letter, Lily, and I think we finally understood it." Noah reached for his hand. "Dad, do you think she can see it?" Ethan smiled, watching the lantern disappear into the stars. "She is it." The wind shifted, brushing through their hair. A faint scent of jasmine passed between them. There, then gone. But it was enough. Rachel wiped her eyes and whispered to Claire, "She got what she wanted." They both did. Claire smiled softly. A doctor who learned to heal himself, and a little boy who taught him how. Ethan turned toward them, his expression calm, renewed. "I think I'm done running," he said quietly. "I'll keep working here, maybe start a foundation for kids like Noah, for mothers who fight alone." Rachel nodded. That's exactly what she would have wanted. The stars above shimmered brighter, the night unfolding like a page of Lily's letter. Ethan looked up one last time, his voice steady. "Good night, Lily." A gust of wind rose, and for a brief heartbeat, the lantern flared, brighter than all the rest, before vanishing completely into the night. Noah whispered, "She heard you." Ethan's eyes glistened. "Yeah, buddy, she always does." They stood together in silence, the city below alive with light, the sky above vast and open. Between them, the distance that once existed was gone. A man and a boy, a doctor and a son, two souls stitched together by a letter that had crossed heaven and time. And far above, among the stars, one light seemed to pulse softly, like a heartbeat, refusing to fade. Because some goodbyes don't end. They just change shape. In the end, Ethan didn't just save a life. He found his own heart again, and every time he looks at the night sky with Noah, he knows Lily is still there, listening, shining, forgiving. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of dignity and family. And above all, thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul. And before you go, watch the story I leave here on the left. I'm sure it will also move you and make you reflect.